Matt awoke in horror, surrounded by mangled metal. His legs crushed and trapped. Even worse, his truck lay hidden from view. He screamed, but no one could hear him. No one knew he was there. This is the Miracle Files. I'm Emily Jones.
And I'm Holly Worthington. We're two sisters who love a captivating true story, but we're also seeking more light in our lives.
So we're on a mission to find and share unforgettable, uplifting stories of God's miracles. We hope you'll join us on this journey.
Welcome back to the Miracle Files. We are so happy to have you back, and this story that we have for you is so good today. I love it.
Yeah, this one is pretty crazy. I'm excited.
It's one that will tear your heart out, lift you up all in the same breath.
Yeah. And before we start, we just want to thank everyone for all of your support and positivity, the messages that you're sending us. It means so much to us.
Shout out to every one of you. We are just so appreciative of anyone listening. And sometimes we do get some comments saying that we are too focused on positive things that happen to people and maybe aren't aware of all the terrible things that happen in the world. And we just want to say we are aware. We've both been through terrible things ourselves.
Yeah. We're not in denial that there are terrible things that happen in the world, but there are enough podcasts and news stations that focus on those. So we want to focus on God's light, and there are miracles, big and small, that happen all the time.
And often they happen in those darkest moments when you know that you're not alone.
Yeah, definitely.
And this story today, it has some pretty hard things, and we do need to give a trigger warning.
Yeah, this episode does talk about suicide, but it also has a really positive message, and we feel like you're going to really enjoy this, so hang in there.
And if somebody is struggling out there, we hope you know you're not alone, and we hope that this episode will help to inspire you.
All right, let's jump in.
Let's do it.
27-year-old Matt Reem worked as a welder, helping to build large structures such as power plants, refineries, and nuclear facilities. The date was December 20th, 2023, just 5 days before Christmas. And Matt had spent the afternoon working with youth who wanted to learn welding skills. He'd packed some clothes for a trip and was planning to travel the next day, but for now, after a late dinner at a restaurant, Matt decided to head home. It was a dark winter's night, and a thick fog rolled in. Matt strained his eyes to see the road ahead of him as he drove his pickup truck down a wooded stretch of freeway near South Bend, Indiana. The dark road seemed to disappear into misty clouds, illuminated by his headlights. And then, without a moment's notice, his headlights lit up two glowing eyes. Making a split decision, Matt swerved to avoid hitting the deer. He meant to swerve onto the shoulder, but instead drove into the grass. He tried to quickly correct and swerve back onto the road, but there was a bridge ahead. His truck crashed into the guardrail of the bridge, which completely tore off the entire front wheel assembly on the driver's side.
I lose control of my truck and I end up going sideways, and then I start to roll. I don't know exactly how many times I did roll, but I ended up going through the creek to the other bank of the river.
Matt's truck came to a stop in the worst possible location, under the far side of the bridge where no one could see him from the road. The pickup now sat angled down over the embankment of a 30-foot wide creek bed. The front of the truck had been smashed into a mangled heap of metal. The engine pushed into Matt's body, pinning his legs beneath it. The bones of Matt's right hand were shattered. It was approximately 11:30 at night, and no one had seen Matt lose control and crash under the bridge. In fact, Matt's family and friends thought Matt was heading out of town. So even worse than being completely hidden from sight, No one would be worried if Matt disappeared. No one would be looking for him. As water rushed beneath his truck, he lay unconscious for several minutes, helpless and alone.
I came to, and in my mind, I'm thinking that it's just a dream. I don't really think that this would happen to me. And just left my phone in my passenger seat. And so after the wreck, I didn't know exactly where it was. I didn't know, is it in my truck? Is it out of my truck? Is it back on the hill? I had no clue. So I try calling out for Siri to call 911. I try honking. I try yelling for a solid 10, 15 minutes. But I didn't get any response. And I would imagine around midnight, I just decided, hey, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to wake up. This will all be a dream. I'll be in a hotel room.
If only it were just a dream, but it wasn't. The next morning, on December 21st, Matt awoke in horror as he realized he was still under the bridge in a demolished truck that had his legs completely trapped. Airbags covered his windows. Twisted metal surrounded him. His body and truck were covered in shattered glass, and all Matt could hear was the rumble of traffic above him and the roar of the creek beneath him.
Thursday, I woke up, and that's when it had kind of set in, like, this is not a dream. This is happening. I'm stuck in my truck and nobody can see me. So that morning, I kind of took inventory or figured out, this is the different things I have in my truck. I realized that I had no food. I had no water. I had a toolkit behind my driver's side seat. I had a bunch of stuff on the passenger floorboard. And I realized all my windows are shattered. I can't feel my left leg. I couldn't wiggle my toes, nothing. So I'm like, okay, my leg's probably asleep. So a lot of that morning, I spent time tearing things that had broken during the crash, tearing them out, trying to give myself as much room as possible.
As Matt reached for tools to help him dismantle his truck, he felt excruciating pain in his hand, but he continued to try to free himself in any way he could. Matt reached behind his seat and grabbed the larger tool set. It took considerable effort and pain to move the set, as it weighed around 30 pounds. But Matt felt determined to do something, anything.
So I set it in my passenger seat and I just started taking out every nut and bolt and screw that I could get to, that I could see that, I felt like would actually do something. Taking apart pieces of my door if I could. One of the biggest things that I was trying to take out was my steering wheel. That's when I realized I am not a mechanic and I have no idea how to remove a steering wheel.
Matt found a pen and notebook in his center console.
That morning, I started kind of writing down some of the goals that I wanted to try to achieve. And one of the biggest things that my mind was set on was finding my phone, getting it charged, and calling for help that way. Because, calling 911 would be the quickest and easiest way to get rescued.
Matt was pretty sure he had a phone cord and charger pack somewhere in his vehicle. He tried to picture in his mind where he'd last seen his cell phone. It seemed like maybe it was up by the windshield, somewhere near the passenger side.
I'm still stuck. I can't move, but I had a windshield wiper that had broken off that I was able to pull things around on my passenger side floorboard, and if I stretched enough over my center console and down, I could use my fingers and barely grab onto stuff down there.
Matt spent several hours trying to find his cell phone with no success. On the slim hope that his phone was still somewhere close by, Matt continued to yell to Siri, but nothing would happen. He screamed to try to get some kind of response from above, but no one could hear him. Again and again, he was left alone with only his thoughts and the roar of the rushing creek below him. December 21st slowly turned into December 22nd. with Matt awake most of the night in discomfort. As the day dawned, Matt awoke with a desperate craving for water. His thirst was becoming painful. As close as he was to the creek, the water lay out of reach. Matt tried to focus on what he could control and continued to dismantle any parts of his truck that he could. As the day wore on, Matt's thirst became overpowering. Matt knew he could only survive 3 days without anything to drink, and it had already been almost 2. His time was growing short. And then above him, the sky grew dark with clouds. The air filled with the smell of rain, which is unusual for Indiana in December. Suddenly, Matt heard the pitter-patter of rain falling all around him, so close by, and yet just out of reach.
It started to rain, and generally that'd be a great thing. But with me being under a bridge, I'm like, oh, I'm under a bridge, I can't get water.
Matt's heart sank. Water was his only hope. And here he was, trapped, unable to move, unable to do anything about his miserable situation. And then a miracle happened. Water suddenly began pouring in through Matt's sunroof. But how? Then Matt realized that his truck just happened to land under the bridge's drainage spout. In fact, it was exactly above his shattered sunroof. Matt quickly bent and angled his sunshades so the water could funnel to him. He took a gulp of water, only to discover a new problem.
I realized very quickly that rainwater off a highway tastes absolutely horrible because it's a mix of gasoline, diesel, rubber, tires, asphalt, probably dead animals. It's everything you probably shouldn't be putting in your body, but it's water. So in my overnight bag, where I had a couple changes of clothes, I had a pair of sweatpants in there. And I'm like, okay, I've gone camping before. I know how to make like a rudimentary water filter. I can't filter out bacteria or anything like that, but I can at least try to make it a little bit healthier. It didn't make the water taste any better, but it got rid of any of the dirt and things like that out of the water.
Matt found another use for the water. The shattered glass everywhere made Matt incredibly uncomfortable. It was all over inside his shirt and pants. So Matt began using the water to try to wash the shards of glass off his body.
There's a saying that you should never put salt in a wound, but trying to put gasoline and diesel-infused water in a wound hurts. My entire waistline was raw just from where all the glass had shattered. But at the same time, it was the most rudimentary first aid that I could do. So that was one of the biggest things, was trying to keep everything as sanitary as possible and trying to, make it so I wouldn't get infected if I ever were to get out of that situation.
On December 23rd, now 3 days under the bridge, Matt started the morning feeling somewhat hopeful. He had water, he was able to locate his cell phone charger battery pack and a charging cord. If he could just free himself, he would be able to find his cell phone too and call for help. That's when Matt came to a chilling decision.
It kind of crossed my mind that I was going to have to cut myself out of that situation. Like cut either the seat cushions back to where I could wiggle my legs back and crawl out, or to the extreme, amputate my own legs. So my next goal was to get that paring knife that I had seen a few times on my passenger floorboard. With the steering wheel in my leg, all I could do was just try to stretch and reach it.
Matt spent the whole third day desperately trying to reach the paring knife. He used the windshield wiper and anything else he had to try to move the paring knife just an inch, and then another inch closer to him. Finally, he could reach it with the tips of his fingers. The knife was within his grasp. He felt certain that cutting himself out was his only hope at this point. He needed this knife, and he finally had it. It balanced there for a split second in his fingers, and then it was gone.
And it fell in between my passenger side door and the seat. The reason I was setting goals for myself is because I knew that I had to try to keep myself motivated, and every time I would reach a goal, it would make me feel like I was one step closer to getting myself out of there. So when I dropped that knife, it was kind of a stark reminder how bad that situation was. It kind of made me feel completely powerless. It was kind of at that point, the thought crossed my head, I'm not getting out of this.
As Matt sat there in utter discouragement, he would hear the most disheartening sound day in and day out. Even though Matt was in a wooded area, he knew businesses and other establishments lay just beyond the woods. This included both a nearby police station and a nearby firehouse.
So all night, all day, being underneath a bridge on an interstate, I could hear fire trucks and I could hear ambulances and I could hear thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of cars driving overhead every day.
Hoping and wishing all day that these sirens could be for him was maddening. And here Matt sat, trapped, unseen, unheard, and losing hope quickly. By the afternoon of the third day, Matt's thoughts began to grow very dark.
Most of my life, I had dealt with mental health issues between undiagnosed ADHD, anxiety, depression, and for a lot of my life, I had taken medication and I had been dealing with that in the best way myself and doctors were able to work through. But being in a situation like that where my back was against the wall and I was literally pinned up against the wall, I would rather take myself out of this world than continue to go through this.
Matt couldn't take it anymore. He couldn't stand to sit helplessly, screaming for his life for one more minute.
I think it was the night of the third day. It had gotten really dark for me. The same sweatpants that I had been using to stay alive, essentially, I would wrap it around my throat, trying to asphyxiate myself because I was tired of it. You know, I felt completely hopeless. So one of the attempts, my vision actually starts going black.
Matt had completely given up. He had reached a moment when he felt like he had no other way out. Yet, in this dark, terrible moment, another miracle occurred. Matt heard a voice. It wasn't anyone coming to rescue him, but it was a voice he thought he recognized, and it told him to stop.
I thought I'd hear my best friend's voice, telling me not to do it. Having that voice reach out is the only reason why I stopped trying that night. So after that, I spend 2-3 hours just yelling at the top of my lungs, hoping somebody will hear me.
Over the next 2 days, Matt spent most of his time yelling or sleeping or praying.
I think anybody in a situation like that is going to start blaming, a higher power. I think anybody in a situation like that is, on the flip side, also going to pray to every higher power they could think of. I was throwing out as many Hail Marys I could think of. All religions talk about them being hope. And, in a situation like that, hope is a lot of what you need.
In order to sleep, Matt would either lean forward on his folded arms or prop his head against a torn piece of the roof material. In the moments he was awake, he began to feel he was truly losing his mind. Christmas Day arrived. With families and friends gathered in celebrations all around the state of Indiana, Matt remained trapped in the mangled prison of his truck, unbeknownst to anyone else. Matt wrote in his journal, "Merry Christmas to me." He did receive one gift for Christmas. It began to rain again, so Matt could drink water. Unfortunately, the rain was both a blessing and a curse. At times, Matt had to use the bathroom, which was a cruel torment in and of itself.
With all those cuts and everything, it's kind of painful. It was a very surreal, painful experience. The more I tried to stay hydrated, the more I had to go through this. So staying alive hurt.
That night, Matt thought he heard people working on the bridge above him.
So I spend most of the night yelling at the top of my lungs, trying to get their attention. I'm yelling till, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, just trying to get somebody to hear me. And nothing. I think I'm hearing all these voices and I keep yelling and nothing. And then I hear sirens and then they just keep driving. It felt like my own little personal hell.
On the day after Christmas, 6 days into Matt's ordeal, Matt woke up and wrote an obituary for himself. He was no longer sure how long he'd been down under the bridge, but he was sure he was going to die there. As Matt used the sweatpants to try to end his own life again, the voice he heard before returned, pleading, "Hey, don't do this." Matt decided his only other option was to try to light his truck on fire in hopes that someone would see the flames or smoke. He knew this could end his life, but he felt it was his only chance of being found.
And so I had a couple batteries in my truck and I tried to pull some of the wiring out of my truck and, start a fire.
One way or another, Matt's nightmare would soon end. The forecast was for freezing temperatures that night. Whether by fire or hypothermia, his time was quickly running out. Not far down the road from where Matt's truck lay hidden from view, Mario Garcia and his son-in-law, Navarro de la Torre, were spending the day after Christmas window shopping at a Bass Pro Shop. Navarro had heard that one of the trails behind the shop led to a fishing hole and suggested they walk through the woods to see if it were true. But it was a cool, damp winter afternoon. The two men couldn't decide what to do. Here's Navarro describing the conversation that ensued.
I get up to the trail there, and we were debating on walking in or not because it was so muddy. Should we go? Should we not go?
But something just told Navarro and Mario to go. Here's Mario.
We started walking through there. It's about a 15-minute walk. We went about halfway through it, and we almost decided to go back, and then we went over some tree trunks.
Several times, the men thought about turning back. Finally, as they neared a bridge, they decided it was time to go home. The sun was beginning to dip low in the sky. But just as Mario turned to go, a glint of sunlight reflected up into his eye from below the bridge. It caught his curiosity. What was it reflecting off of? He walked closer to the bridge to investigate.
There was like a bunch of metal that looked all tangled up down in the embankment, way down at the bottom. But it was far away, and you could just barely see it through the trees. And we both said it was like a crash or a car or something, but we couldn't distinguish it because it was so mangled.
Mario and Navarro continued forward to get a better look, Mario walking ahead.
So I walked through the branches. I started getting closer and closer, and then you could see the riprap on the ground and the bridge and the rapids of the creek that were going by there real fast. And I seen the wreck. And then I seen the airbag was covering the actual doorway there, and that kind of got me nervous. And I said, this hasn't been discovered.
Inside his truck, Matt had given up on trying to light a fire. It was too damp and cold. He napped on and off, still haunted by cars and sirens coming and going over the bridge. As the afternoon passed excruciatingly slowly, Matt opened his eyes, awaking to the mangled metal and dark airbags surrounding him. It had been day after day of the same nightmare. Matt closed his eyes again. There was no hope. Nothing ever changed. Nothing. Until the moment it did.
I wake up and I kind of look to my right and I see a hand pulling back the curtain airbag. And in my mind, in that state of being, I think I'm hallucinating, and they finish pulling back the airbag, and this guy, Mario, he looks in there, he's like, "Are you alive?"
And I went up to it and I moved the airbag, and there was somebody in there. There was somebody in there, and that shocked me. And at that point, I thought it was a body. It was motionless. The head was down. At that point, I was worried about somebody missing somebody, or even thinking about my own son being there in that situation. It was pretty heartbreaking. And they turned around slowly, and that kind of knocked me on the rocks there. But I got back up. I mumbled some stuff like, "Do you live here? What are you doing here?" Because I was kind of shocked. And Matt just turned around and he says, "Are you real? Am I really talking to you?" And I says, "Yeah, I'm real."
As Mario yelled to Navarro to call 911, Matt still couldn't believe Mario was real. He couldn't believe he might actually be rescued. Everything felt like a dream.
And then probably 3, 4, 5 minutes later, I start hearing sirens. And my brain's still thinking that these sirens are just going to keep going by. There's nobody here. But for the first time in 6 days, they actually stopped.
It was what Matt had dreamt of for what felt like endless days. The sirens finally stopped for Matt.
And then there were more sirens and more sirens and more sirens. And a state trooper comes down and, he's trying to ask me questions. And I don't really believe it's happening, but I'm still answering these questions to the best I can.
Dozens of first responders showed up to help Matt at this point. But even so, Matt's ordeal wasn't over yet.
At this point, this is the 6th day of not being able to feel my leg, so I know there's something wrong with it. And so I tell them that, and they're like, "We'll check it out once we get you out of here." And, my brain's still not fully processing that I'm being rescued. So they put an IV in me and they start stabilizing my truck, because the entire time I'm in there, my truck's on an incline. Then they start cutting off my rear driver's side door. And I'm like, "Hey, that's the wrong door." So they kind of laugh at that. And, I'm trying to keep as positive as possible, because there's a part of me that still doesn't think that this is real.
The rescue effort took over 2 hours because the fire crew's hydraulic tools had trouble beneath the bridge. And as Matt was finally extracted from his truck, it became clear how severe his injuries were.
So they finally get the driver's side door out. And for the first time, I can actually stretch my arm properly. And, they've got me wrapped in a blanket to make sure I'm not getting sparks on me or cut up or anything like that. Then they start pushing the engine off my leg. For the first time in 6 days, I actually feel pain coming from my left leg. So as soon as they started getting that pressure off my leg, I'm like, "Okay, great. Can I crawl out now? I'm tired of being here." And they're like, "No, not yet. We got to make sure that, it's not going to fall on you," anything like that. I'm like, "Okay, can y'all hurry up, please?" They eventually get me out of there, and they get me on a stretcher, and my foot's doing whatever it wants to do.
Matt's left leg was bloody and mutilated. His left shin had been broken straight through. His right ankle was also broken, and his foot faced backwards.
So I obviously look down and see that. I'm like, "Oh, that's not supposed to be doing that." So they end up making just a giant line of firefighters to get me up this hill. And of course, while they're getting me out of my truck, there are more firefighters cutting down trees to be able to get me up the hill.
Matt was airlifted to the hospital. 2 days later, his left leg was amputated from the shin down and later amputated from the knee down. He stayed in the hospital for a total of 3 weeks, but his recovery has gone remarkably well. He's working with physical and occupational therapists on learning to use his new prosthetic leg. His broken bones have healed quickly, and he recently had surgery to fix the tendons in his thumb. Matt has had a difficult history with religion. At times, he has felt like it was used as a punishment for him. While Matt doesn't subscribe to any particular belief system, he said he definitely believes in a higher power. And while his relationship with God has sometimes been a complicated one, Matt does believe his experience was nothing short of a miracle.
I don't think that you can look at this story and call it anything other than a miracle. The fact that my truck landed where it landed on its wheels, I was able to get water from a drainage spout from a highway above me. The fact that, contrary to my broken bones, my body could have been way worse. Mario and Navardo fighting me, that in and of itself is a miracle, because who's going fishing in December? The fact that it was 54 degrees out during that week, that's a miracle. The fact that it didn't snow, the fact that, it was raining enough for me to have water, that's a miracle. One of the craziest miracles, my friend set up a GoFundMe for me as soon as she heard about it. And the fact that so much was raised in such a short amount of time is a miracle. The fact that I've been able to heal as quickly and as soundly as I have. The fact that I was in good enough health to be able to go through an ordeal like this. There's so many things that are miraculous about this.
Mario and Navardo agree. They feel they were guided by God to go down a muddy, overgrown trail in the middle of winter.
Well, I knew it was there. It was just, we never been to it. And that day we decided to go there for whatever reason.
But, we're glad we're there. And now we got to face the what if we didn't go. This would have been a whole different outcome. He probably would have been discovered just recently. But luckily, he was located. Matt mentioned at one point in one of our get-togethers, he prayed. He was begging God for help. I believe in Jesus Christ and I believe in the Lord. And he answers our prayers. He's never tired. You want to pray to him. You want to let him know that you need him. And he sees what you got in your heart. Yeah, so his prayer was heard. It is a miracle from God.
As Matt goes forward, he is determined to share his experience with others. He hopes to inspire and help those who struggle with mental illness or who feel hopeless. He is currently working on a book titled Still Standing: The 7 Miracles of Matt Reem.
This is life. Life can suck sometimes. This is my story about how my life has sucked a little bit. But this is what I'm doing to move forward. I think that's the biggest thing that I want to get across in my book is, yes, life can be horrible. You can be kicked down at every turn. You can have every door shut in your face. You can be stuck in your truck for 6 days, but you can get through it and you can make it another day, and you can empower and motivate and invigorate other people to be able to make a change and be able to make it another day. I've had hundreds of messages of people who have said that my story has kept them from, committing suicide, that I've kept them going another day, that I've helped them keep on keeping on. It's okay to have it seem like, back's against the wall and you can't do anything about it, but, all it takes is just hanging in there another day.
Matt's powerful message is both inspiring and uplifting. His is the ultimate survivor story that stands as a testament to us all, that no matter what, we can hang on for one more day.
That's an amazing story, isn't it?
Oh my gosh, absolutely crazy.
It's heartbreaking and yet so inspiring.
I love how he came out of this really awful, terrible experience so strong with such a positive attitude.
Oh, yeah, he's incredible.
I agree. let's talk about the miracle of this story. Let's kind of spell it out. What for you was the miracle of this story?
Oh my goodness, all of it. but seriously, It seemed like there were so many miracles that took place there. I mean, obviously the water being under that drainage spout was huge.
I know. You think about like what a horrible luck to land under this bridge where no one could see him. It seems like how could it have possibly been worse? And yet you think about if his car would have rolled into the river where it was
been upside down.
Yeah, it could have been upside down and he could have drowned. He could have been so many places under that bridge where there wasn't a drainage spout.
Yeah. And he could have still been in places where they wouldn't have seen him.
This could have been a very different ending.
Yeah. And then the other thing that really stood out to me is that I think it was a blessing he didn't get that knife. I think that might have been a really bad thing for him to have that knife, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if he had gotten that knife, I think he would have tried to amputate his own legs.
Yeah.
The likelihood of him surviving that without losing so much blood before he was able to get help. I mean, best case scenario, he ends this experience losing both legs.
Yeah.
Most likely scenario, he doesn't walk away from this experience at all.
Well, and who knows what he would have done in those dark moments too.
He wanted that knife so badly. You know, sometimes God answers our prayers in ways that we don't understand. He didn't see the bigger picture, but God did.
There's so many times like that, aren't there, where you have a moment where you just think, why is this happening to me? And this is the worst thing ever. And it's just so frustrating. And then in hindsight, you look back and you're like, oh, God did have a plan. There was a reason for that.
Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. Another part of the miracle for me is the fact that he couldn't feel his leg.
Oh, yeah.
And possibly both legs. He probably couldn't feel either one.
They were completely asleep.
Clearly, he had a nerve pinch.
Right. It would have been unbearable if he could have felt those injuries.
Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine if he could feel that the whole week?
I think that was a little blessing because that would have been terrible.
Yeah, that would have been awful. I'm so glad that he didn't have to experience that.
And I think he also didn't have to experience the typical extreme cold temperatures because this was an unusually warm December.
Yeah, I have a friend that lives in Indiana and she's been saying how warm this last winter was.
Right, because typically in Indiana, it doesn't rain in December, it snows.
Yeah.
And
it freezes and it would have been really bad.
Well, and also the fact that the temperature was warm enough is the reason that Mario and Navarro decided to go fishing.
Yeah. And that fishing hole, I mean, they didn't even know where it was. They didn't know where they were going. They were going through a muddy trail. Totally. And this was not really a trail either, from what they said. I mean, this is more like a game trail where it's like, it's not like there was a clear path that they were following.
Yeah, we actually have a recording from when Navarro called 911, just to give you some perspective of what Navarro and Mario were going through as they discovered some man in this broken down truck.
911, what's the exact location of your emergency?
Hey, sir. I'm here at let's see, a fishing hole right off the expressway here. I don't know the address, but there's a car that's been here since Wednesday, and there's a person inside of it. He's still alive too.
Okay, give me 1 second, okay?
All right, can you ping my location?
All right, so you're on the interstate. So it's on the interstate, like the car's parked on the interstate?
No, he's underneath the bridge on the interstate.
He's underneath the bridge?
Yeah, the car and everything.
Okay. So he drove off. Like, did he wreck, or did he just pull off the road?
No, he wrecked. He said he's been here since Wednesday. And his car's totally totaled, and he's in the car right now as we speak.
Okay. All right. Give me just 1 second. I'm
You all right?
Narrow down the location. Do you see a mile marker just to verify?
Yeah, let me go up here. Let me see if I can get you one.
Okay. Is it easier to access them from the?
You can access him from right here from the bridge from the highway. Yeah.
Okay.
See, that's crazy. I came down here to check for fishing, and he's down here in the car. They're coming. Yeah, he's been here since Wednesday, he said.
He's been there since Wednesday? Okay.
It's kind of crazy to hear Navarro talking to the police and they ask, where's your location? And he doesn't even know. He's like, can you ping me? I have no idea where I'm at.
I know. These guys just literally wandered out in the middle of nowhere looking for this fishing hole.
And you can hear in his voice how shocked he is because this is the last thing they were planning to find that day.
Yeah. Can you imagine that moment? I'm not surprised it knocked Mario back on the rocks because, I mean,
literally knocked him on
about giving you a heart attack.
I know. It's just crazy. And another thing that we want to play for you, we actually have some audio from a body cam footage from when they found Matt. And so let's play that as well.
Portage 199, there is a vehicle. It is pretty badly damaged. I'm trying to get down to it. It's going to be on the western side of the bridge. Portage 199, it's not in the water. There is a male outside.
Yes, I believe that's our caller.
Who found him? You did?
I'm Mario. I'm the one that found him.
How'd you find him?
We came over there and I told him, there's a car over there. And I says, let me go check it out. Because there's a couple guys fishing. So I came by here and he scared that out of me when I opened
I-94. It's going to be closer to the westbound lanes, mile marker 20.2, directly under the bridge. Hang on, buddy. You stay there. We got medics coming, okay? Don't worry about nothing. How long has he been there?
They said 6 or 7 days.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. But, I mean, nobody would have seen this thing
No.
falling.
He roll off the side or what?
He must have hit it. Like, I don't know is that a wheel?
Maybe. Yeah, that's the...
Yeah. But, I mean, it's not weird to see a wheel on the side of 94.
Yeah. So he's been there like 6 days.
I didn't expect it to be legit. It was weird.
Yeah, when I peeked, I came on that side, peeked my head, I saw the truck, I was like, holy I'm just saying. Yeah. Hey, he said he's been here like 6 days. He's conscious, breathing. He says, I think his legs are crushed. So. Thank God somebody found him. Yeah. It could have been bad. I looked in, I thought he was 10-0. I didn't know you were talking to him.
You can tell those guys were stunned.
Yeah, these are police officers and they've seen everything and this shocked them. This was no normal Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah. And to see the footage, oh my goodness. Like, we'll post some more footage on our Patreon and
pictures. And it is crazy to see his car. You can tell how smashed it was and how little room he had inside of there. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
By the way, Matt's book is going to come out hopefully in mid-July. His username is actually Matt the Russian 1 on Instagram. And then it's just Matt Reem on Facebook, spelled MATTREUM. And he's going to be releasing information about his upcoming book.
Another thing that we wanted to mention is that Mario's wife has had some health concerns, and we just wanted to ask you for your prayers on her behalf, and we just hope everything's all right.
Yeah, we will be praying for her ourselves, and we hope that all of you will join us in prayer for her.
And we just want to say thank you to Matt and Navarro and Mario for sharing their story with us. This is such a crazy but inspiring story to me.
So inspiring. And I mean, Matt, we seriously have so much respect for you. And we also pray for your healing as well. Thank you for joining us. If you have a miracle to share, contact us at themiraclefiles.com or find us on Facebook.
We'll post new episodes on the first day of each month. And if you enjoyed this podcast, please share it and leave us a review.
Join us next time as we discover more of God's miracles. And don't forget to look for His light in your own lives.
If you'd like to support us on Patreon so we can produce more episodes like this, go to patreon.com/The Miracle Files. You'll get exclusive access to photos, videos, articles, and other content you won't find anywhere else. We'll also have live chats, and we'd love to interact with you there. Thank you so much for your support.